We'll call the Planning, Zoning, Agriculture Committee meeting to order Wednesday, October 18th. Roll call, please.
Mr. Olchoff,
Present.
Mr. Stauffenberg, Mr. Tripp, Mr. Washington, Mr. Tholen, Ms. Polk, Mr. Mulcahy, Mr. Hildebrand, Mr. Einfeld, Mr. Payton, Ms. Peters, Mr. Ritter, Mr. Kinzinger, Mr. Wheeler, Mr. Lear. We have a quorum.
I have no request for public comment. We've received a copy of the September 20th, 2017 minutes. Are there any additions or corrections? Motion to approve would be in order. Ms. Peters, second by Mr. Washington. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Under building, the building report.
Should have the August and September building report in your packet. For August, we issued 77 permits with and collected a total fees of $19,220.50 for the permits, and total fees including fines and administrative fees was $24,750.50. We issued one new home that month. In September, the number of new homes jumped up to 8, which is a number we haven't seen in 1 month in years, with total permits of 90 and a total fees collected of $52,304.50.
Wow. Was that any special location?
The new homes? No, they're in various places, but we haven't seen those kind of numbers in a month since about 2010.
Oh. Great. Any questions? Mr. Kinzinger.
Mr. Chairman, fines seem to be a consistent number. What is that? Give me just a brief description.
Fines are for violations. It could be any type of violation.
Okay, so they're like in August they're 2,000, in September they're 2,100. Is that, and I'm new to this committee, is that typical?
No,
average?
it can vary. Sometimes
It's
it's
just a coincidence.
yes, yes, I think so. I'm not sure what fines these are for these two particular months, but it could be anything from property maintenance to code violation,
Understood.
zoning violation.
So they're not repetitive in nature necessarily, just a coincidence this month.
Well, I mean, the violations might be, but it's not necessarily the same person.
Okay.
It's amazing that they're paid. Okay. Going on, and we're going to switch the next two. Board of Examiners first, and then the contract registration second. Correct?
Yes. Okay.
Oh, we need a
Yeah, motion for the building report.
motion to combine the two building reports by Mr. Mulcahy, by Sam. Mr. Payton, how can I miss Payton? Golly. At least they didn't call you Walter. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. All right, now,
The last executive committee meeting, some questions came up about the Board of Examiners and Appeals and how we license or register contractors. So I thought I would give a presentation on both today to kind of set the record straight and explain to you guys how things work. We'll start with the Board of Examiners and Appeals. It's a body that is appointed by the county board, and their main function is to recommend amendments to the building code to the county board. Another function of the Board of Examiners is that they hear appeals and review decisions by the building division of the planning department. So if a contractor or a homeowner does not like the answer we give them, they can appeal it to the Board of Examiners. In that instance, they are the final decision-making body. For building codes, those are a recommendation to the county board, and the county board gets to decide the final outcome of new codes. It's a 6-member board. We have 1 electrician, 1 plumber, 1 civil engineer, 1 architect, 1 residential contractor, and 1 commercial contractor on the board. Their terms are for 3 years. All of their terms expired in June, so they are all up for reappointment. We do need a commercial contractor. That slot has been open since Terry Vaughn moved to, I believe, Florida about a year ago. So if you know anybody who's a commercial contractor would be interested, certainly get them to apply.
I can't even volunteer.
The
for that.
question Mr. McConnell raised at the county board about HVAC, you feel that's covered under the,
I do. Mr. McConnell was suggesting that we add the HVAC trade to this list of 6 members, and I really can't see a reason why, because the functions that they do in the building trades are covered by the disciplines that you see here. We do not cover specifically every trade. If we did, the committee would be 30 people long and we'd never get anything done. So
county board
prefer to keep it as small and workable as possible. But that's, of course, up to the county board. Andy did ask me to check into it. This is not number 10.
Number 10. Oh,
Thanks. Where were we? Did ask me to look into it. It's not bound to any state statute. This is strictly our own county code, so we can change it if we would like to. I personally do not see a reason to.
any other questions? Mr. Kinzinger?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am a current commercial contractor and a county board member. Is it a conflict of interest if I were to volunteer for that committee?
Yes, it would be. Because you would be voting on your own and making decisions on your own recommendations. Yes, it would. But if you have anybody in the business that you know, we could use one, so.
What a partner of him in that business. What?
I have to ask the state's attorney, but I believe it would, because it's not him. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Current chairman is David Tyson, but once we have the new 6 members seated, a new chairman would be appointed. It could be Dave again.
Reappoint you.
The chairman of the county board appoints by recommendation of the county board. So yes, you do. Okay. And the secretary of the group is our head of building and zoning, which will be Steve Marion at the end of the month. And that's what I have for meetings. Their rules of procedure say that they meet the 3rd Monday of the month at 4 p.m. Frankly, they meet as needed, and most times it could be 2 years between meetings, so it's not a huge task. Although, since people don't take our word for things these days and want to call us out on every decision we make, I suspect they may start meeting more often. Okay. Any questions on Board of Examiners?
Okay.
All right, we're going to registration and licensing. From the same executive committee meeting, and Mr. McConnell brought that up too, is wanting to know why we didn't license HVAC contractors. Here's a little explanation for that. We actually do not license any contractors. We do register contractors, and HVAC is one of the contractors we register. In fact, all contractors that do any work that require a building permit must be registered. But we do not license anyone. There are contractors that are licensed, but they're licensed by the state, and that is roofers, plumbers, and fire alarm contractors. In fact, because they're licensed by the state, they are exempt from some parts of our registration process, such as the requirement for bonds, because they already have to have a bond with the state. I said all contractors doing work that requires a permit have to be registered. Homeowners, family members, and unpaid friends performing work on your own personal residence are not considered contractors. They don't have to be registered. Registration is for 1 year. It's a $100 per year fee. They have to have a surety bond of $10,000, liability insurance of $1 million, property damage liability of $50,000. And if they have subcontractors or employees, then they must have workman's comp and employer's liability of $100,000. We also provide this registration service to the village of Bradley and Bourbonnais, and up until last month, the city of Kankakee, they started their own registration program last month. So those villages do get some benefit from this program.
Are we staying pretty current on this?
What do you mean by current? What?
Everyone is doing this.
Yes, I mean, it's
Okay.
everyone, but you mean all contractors, or you mean
Yeah.
talking about
People
municipalities?
who are doing work in the county are following.
Every once in a while, we find one that is not, or that their insurance has lapsed, but it gets corrected.
Okay.
That's where some of those fines come into play that we discussed earlier.
Mhm.
Yes. Fees, that $100, the program went into effect in 2000, and it's been a $100 fee since then. It hasn't changed in 17 years. We average about 850 total registrations per year, and 34% of those are usually new registrations. And sometimes that spikes up if we have a major storms. We get some out of county contractors that come into the county just to do work for that sort of thing. Highest year was 1,198 back in 2007, and the program brings in an average of about $84,000 per year.
Mr. Washington.
Dell, for the new members, explain to them why this program originated.
Well, that's way before my time, but my understanding was to provide protection to the homeowners and the property owners for the that would require, which is why the main requirement is the insurance and bonding, so that there is something in place for them to collect on if the contractor does not do what they say they're going to do.
We had a run of complaints from people throughout the county of contractors who would come in and promise what they were going to do and then not do it. They wouldn't complete the work. There were, for example, hail damage. They would make all kind of commitments and then they wouldn't complete that commitment, and the people had no recourse except for trying to take them to court if they could find them.
Yeah,
Didn't this come about around 2002 to 2005?
the program started in 2000. I think discussion started about 99.
Okay.
And I do recall that there was some issues where deposits were paid and the contractors never came back and finished the work or even started it in some cases.
That's right.
And we were getting a lot of complaints about that. Now there's at least a bond and insurance policies that they can get their
Right.
money back from.
Without having to go to court.
And it helps keep people honest because we have some mechanisms now. If they're not registered, they can't work. If they don't follow the codes, they can't be registered. So,
Right.
and there's a chart of the registration history. As you can see, 2006, 2007 were some of our highest years. And we're on target again still this year to get to where, into our average,
$500 fine.
payable to the planning department.
Through the chairman.
Through the chairman, yes.
All right.
Okay, give you an idea what other counties and municipalities are doing. We are really cheap. Will County charges $150 for general contractors, $250 for contractors with trades, and $75 for subcontractors. Cook County is $105 per trade, so if you got a general contractor with several trades, that can be several $100s. DuPage County is $200 for general, $300 for general contractors with trades, and $100 for subcontractors. And you can see the municipalities there too. Highest municipality is Freeport with $294 for electrical and HVAC. $220 for all others. They do give you a break on renewals. They're only half that fee if you're just renewing. Streamwood $200, Shanahan $150, Mantino $150 for all. Kankakee, they just started a month ago. They're at $150 for all.
If you register in the county, are you covered in municipalities, or it has to be?
In Bradley and Bourbonnais, you are. Mantino does its own. Kankakee does its own. So you would have to pay their fees and be registered there as well.
But if you do it in Mantino, you're not covered in the county.
That is correct.
Okay.
They are not part of our program. For whatever reason, they decided to do their own. And for some of the other municipalities, it seems like $100 per year is consistent. Proposal I've been thinking about this for a while, is we do need staff in the planning department, and one way to pay for it would be to raise these fees. Raising them to $200. They haven't been raised since 2000, so 17 years without an increase of any kind. We used to have 17 full-time employees back in about 2006. Now we're down to 5.5. The workload hasn't decreased. If anything, it's gotten more. A lot of important programs have been set aside because we have nobody to do them. Such as solid waste hasn't been touched. And we do have statutes of items in that under that category we're supposed to do stuff about. We just had a review on our stormwater MS4 program, which was not even close to being favorable because we have nobody to assign to it. We've reduced inspection requirements. In fact, our office manager has taken on historic preservation, our enterprise zones, which should be a planning function for a planner, but our office manager is doing it because we have nobody else to assign it to. So, and I'm not looking for an answer today, but just thought I'd run this by you guys. Here's our current staffing chart of who we have. I run the department and do all of the planning functions, except for the ones I said our office manager does, which would be Michelle Sadler. We have a part-time clerical that is paid for by our transportation grant, Melanie. Transportation is managed by Jeffrey Olson, and we do have 2 open positions, one's being advertised right now, that are paid for by that grant. And we'll have Steve Marion, head of the building division. Keith Mosier just started 2 weeks ago. Julius Liptek, you might know him as Butch. He's been on for about 2 years. And we have Mike Magruder is our part-time contractual agreement plumbing inspector. We have nobody in solid waste whatsoever.
Under transportation, if you don't use that person, you lose the grant?
We don't lose the grant. It's a reimbursement grant, though. So if we don't spend the money, we don't get the money.
Okay.
So
Same thing.
I don't know the exact figure, but for the last 2 years, 3 years, we have been giving money back or not collecting the entire grant. Let's put it that way. I also run the GIS department. I've got Daniel Bishop is our GIS tech who runs most of the show there. And for some reason, which is still beyond me, my department funds 2/3 of Debbie Ball's salary and I think 1/3 of Colin Wood's salary in the assessment office. Those 2 employees I pay for, but I have no control over. Ideally, I'd love to get an assistant planner that can take on some of the solid waste, historic preservation, and some of the other planning functions that we just can't get to. Our comprehensive plan is due for an update. I have nobody to assign it to. Our zoning ordinance has a lot of modernization that could be used, especially in the sign category with some of the new court rulings out there. I think our ordinance would not hold up in court.
What amount would this require?
We'll get to that in just a second.
Oh,
All right. And a permit technician, and that position could be even a part-time, somebody to work the counter, greet customers, get the paperwork started. And I'm looking at that position more as possibly a building inspector in training. If they stuck around long enough, learned what they needed to learn when a building inspector's position came open. They might be ready and trained to move right into that position. Then we hire another permit technician and keep a continuous training program. It is very difficult to find and hire an experienced building inspector. Typically, we get somebody from the trades and we train them, which is very time consuming. And there is a cost involved to that. And at some point, Daniel is going to need help in GIS, but that would be paid for out of the GIS fund, and that's not a general fund position. Staffing possibilities. Permit technician. Part-time, about $12,000 a year, to full-time, $24,000 a year. Somewhere around $11, $12 an hour. And I've already explained sort of what they could do. And the assistant planner is probably going to be in the $40,000 to $50,000 range. It would be difficult to get a planner for much less than that. Might be able to get somebody straight out of college with little or no experience for a little bit less than that. How would we fund them? Those two positions at full time and at the top pay scale is about $79,000 a year. If we raise the contractor registration fee from $100 to $200 per year, based on our current averages, would be about $84,000 a year. So raising that fee, which would bring us in line with most other counties and many of the municipalities, would give us the money we need to fund those two positions.
79 include benefits, or?
No, it does not. So there is some there that some monies that would not cover the entire position. So that's the proposal I'm looking at. Like I said, I don't need an answer today. I'm not even looking for an answer today. I just wanted to run it by you. If you feel raising that fee would be a good idea, I can start the process for that. I don't know if a cost study is involved or needed. It might be. We'll have to check with the state's attorney.
Ms. Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's what I was going to mention, maybe the bellwether study to, but also I did like the idea of the renewal, and maybe some of those people who are new every year, maybe they'll just pay for the renewal where sometimes they just let it go. So maybe you'd end up getting more because the new people would stay. So I don't
we
know,
generally don't have many that drop off. The
After
ones that
they
do
get on.
are the ones that just come into the county for a specific project or
hail
issue.
damage or
Yeah, or if you get a big industrial project, they'll come in, work there, and then when that project's done, they're gone.
Okay.
So our normal contractors are renewing every year.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's it.
Mr. Kinzinger.
As a contractor, I didn't realize this proposal was coming, but we have these fees in every city within the county, basically, in addition to the county fees, and it becomes a substantial number. And as I heard earlier, the purpose of the fees were to ensure that contractors performed as promised and as contracted. Now we're using the fees as a means of funding another aspect of county government. I would recommend that we look at how we're operating within the program and see if there's a way of changing things. For instance, prior to the Great Recession in 2008, you'll see in 2006 and 2007, we had a number of contractors that annually renewed. And now in 2017, as I noticed on the chart, it's less than it's been, which would tend to indicate there's less work in the county than there was in 2006. I'm not certain, I haven't researched anything, but I would like this to be looked at very carefully.
Okay. Just a comment on that. The fee funds the program administration. In 2000, when we started this, we actually hired a position for a contractor registration person. They got laid off somewhere around 2007 because of the county's financial issues, and that the entire registration process was taken on by our part-time clerical lady and our office manager. So it's just more duties added onto their job description. And if You know, see what I mean? Go down and take a look at their desks. Sometimes they're piled pretty high with backed up work. So the fee is not to protect the homeowners. That's to administer the program to ensure that everybody has insurance and bonding to protect the homeowners.
Mr. Kinzinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is it possible that we could look at, for instance, software, hardware that would expedite some of the work that's being performed by staff?
Well, we do have a software program.
Is it
for
up to
this.
date?
Yes, it runs on Microsoft Access. Yeah, it's a database program that runs the program. Problem is, you got 895 average number of contractors. Their insurances can expire at any time. So if they do, you have to notify them that it's expired. You got to make sure they're registered and that all their bonding and all of that's in place. It can be time consuming.
We are notified if it expires, right?
No,
Not always.
No.
Not
no.
always, no.
We're responsible.
Some of the better insurance companies will send us a notice. Not always.
So then the contractor has to give a report saying he has insurance.
Well, when you come in for your permit, you have your list of contractors. These ladies check that list of contractors against our database to make sure that each one of them are current and have met all the requirements. So that's part of their duties too, is to check that on every permit.
Okay.
So that was 90 permits or 77 permits in August and 90 last month that they had to check. And sometimes that's a list of 5 or 6 or even more contractors per job, depending on what the job is.
Mr. Kinzinger.
Mr. Chairman, for instance, our software won't allow a check to be written if the insurance isn't current. And our secretary bookkeeper has no responsibilities other than looking at her computer.
Ours does not do that.
That's why I asked the question, are we up to date in terms of our software?
We could look into that. Anyone else? Is that it?
That's it.
Okay, going on to stormwater, MS4 program discussion.
Yeah, as I discussed last month, our MS4 stormwater program requires me to put this on the agenda every month and ask if there are any stormwater MS4 issues that the committee would like to discuss. I was asked what the MS4 stands for last month, and I have an answer for you. It's Municipal Separate Storm Sewer Systems. And this is a program by the IEPA and the federal EPA that is required.
Okay, no issues. Going on to transportation.
All right.
Morning, Jeffrey.
Last month, I wasn't able to be here because I was at the Illinois Public Transit Association conference. But Delbert informed the committee that IDOT is currently having a call for intercity bus projects. It's funded by FTA Section 53F, which is a subsection of the 5311 grant that we already received for our rural public transportation program. So the deadline for submissions is November 17th. The call for projects had some tighter restrictions than we had been expecting in the past. But we are planning on modifying our existing Moments deviated fixed route, which connects Hopkins Park, Moments, and Sun River Terrace to Kankakee, and adding a little extension that would go to the Greyhound station in Kankakee. Greyhound is scheduled to stop Monday through Friday. Actually, we do service Monday through Friday, so twice a day at 8:55 a.m. and 3:50 p.m. We would propose that we go out to the Greyhound stop for anybody who would like to go there, and they can connect to Greyhound there. In the morning, Greyhound goes to Markham and Chicago, and then in the afternoon, they go south to Champaign, Decatur, Springfield, and St. Louis. The other part of the call for projects are capital projects. So we would also include on our application 2 bus shelters. We've had requests in the past and interest in the past with Moments and Sun River Terrace for bus shelters. So we would include those in our application. And the bus shelters would have to be owned by Kankakee County because we are the grantee, but we could come up with agreements with each of the municipalities for maintenance and location and so forth. But I wanted to bring it to this committee first for that. I haven't contacted the municipalities yet. I think we may have had a call recently from someone at Sun River Terrace who was interested. I'm not sure where Moment stands. We have had interest from them in the past. If we were awarded this project by IDOT, the federal funds would allow the county to access more of the state grant funds for our rural transit program without the additional need for local county match. On the chance that we were only awarded the shelters as capital, we would still consider the possibility of connecting the Greyhound station without that additional federal funding in order to receive those shelters, because they would be tied to the intercity bus fund. They would have to be used in part with intercity bus projects. So we would have to connect to Greyhound in that case anyway. The total project cost, we're looking at about $25,000. I believe 14,000 of that, I think 14,000 would be the federal portion, and then the other portion would be state funds. So there wouldn't be a local county match as part of the project. Oh, could you not hear me well?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
It cost us no money, bottom line.
The program. Yes. Sorry.
Is there a requirement on ridership for these grants to be approved?
I don't believe so. Right now, we think we may have a chance because this is a modification of service we already have, and it's a pretty good service, but there's also the possibility they might say, well, why don't you just do that without the additional grant fund? So we're not sure which way it may go, but we think we may have a decent chance, at least with the bus shelters.
Okay, any other questions? Mr. Kinzinger?
Just clarification. So this program that is before us right now has 0 cost to the county, but would impact the county positively.
Yes, this specific project. So the regular general transportation, we do have a local match as part of that, but this project in specific with the call for projects should not have any additional county funds.
Thank you.
Do we need to approve this?
No, this was approved last month.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
Okay. Mr. Payton, number,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The bus that comes to Hopkins Park, do you have any kind of number, or could you give it to me later, approximately how that service is being used?
Of ridership numbers?
Right,
Yes, we can. I think we can get something to you for that.
okay, and you were right, Sun River Terrace, as last week asked me what's the possibility of them having a bus shelter, so thank you.
Ms. Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'd be interested in kind of an overview of ridership too.
Okay.
If you could send it out in an
Sure,
email, maybe
yeah.
to the whole committee, maybe everybody's.
Our ridership for
Different
fiscal year
areas.
2017, I believe it's been about 32,000 rides the last couple of years for the overall system.
Okay, any others? All right, any old business? Any new business?
Yeah.
Any adjournment? Ms. Peters, second. Mr. McKay, bless you. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried.